Does my office look too messy or anything? Should I blur it?
Looks great. Everything looks great.
Those are posters from Beer Can Art from Collective Arts, by the way. For those particular one.
Right, let's start this. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you all for being here, for joining us, and for making this happen. We're delighted that you could all join today to talk about Shopify and how e-commerce can help you grow your business and help Canadian exporters really grow outside their markets and such. We're going to get started right away. Just while the last of you are logging on, let me do some quick introductions. So we have Colleen. Colleen Oates is a director of agency partnerships, particularly for North America and Latin America for Shopify. So we're delighted that Colleen's going to be here talking about some of the big challenges that people find, some of the big challenges that the merchants find, some of the solutions as well that Shopify can provide, particularly for exporters. Lots of very practical tips. So delighted with that. Matthew Waldron, probably is well known to many of you. He is the Trade Commissioner for the Canadian Consulate General based in Miami. A very sort of proactive helper for exporters, very involved in e-commerce especially, but also in AI and things, and someone who does regularly learn-ins and teach-ins and webinars and things. Many of you already probably know him. So thank you very much, Matthew, for being here. And Evalio is the founder of Symphony Partners. Symphony Partners is, well, I'll let Evalio explain what it is, but it is a specialist company that helps companies looking at the digital world, particularly Shopify, but also a full stack of services and support for e-commerce and other digital means. So my name is Susanna Hardy. I'm Chief Content Officer at IBT Online. And IBT Online, we are what's called a full stack online marketing company. What we basically do is we help companies, notably exporters, build digital tools to help them grow their sales, their brand, their exports online anywhere in the world. So websites, online marketing, and we're delighted to be here today. Our agenda today, we're going to talk, I'm going to set the scene a little bit with sort of, just giving us sort of a brief overview about some e-commerce things. And then Matthew's going to talk a little bit about how Canadian Consulate General can help exporters in today's world. That sort of helping hand that you will need sometimes. And then we're going to turn to Colleen to really tell us about how to sell across borders, scaling without limits. That's the name of her presentation. Really a lot of practical help and things. And please remember that there is time at the end for Q&A. So do drop your questions into the chat box and we will circle back. And then Evalio is going to talk about Symphony Partners and some of the solutions that Symphony Partners can bring to exporters looking to build out and support their e-commerce initiatives. And then I'm going to take it back again, looking at some case studies and what we would call digital successes from our point of view. As I said, there is time at the end for Q&A, so we look forward to your time. And you will get a recording. I've already got a question in here. That's great. Yes, you will get a recording of this webinar in your inbox tomorrow. And if you want the slide deck as well, just let us know. We can send that to you. But now we realize you're all busy. We realize your days are full. So we recognize and very appreciative that you can take the time out today to really just listen, learn, be with us today, and spend some time looking at e-commerce solutions to grow your exports. Sit back, relax, listen, engage, take the time, ask the questions you've never had the time to ask before. We look forward to that. So let's start. Let's start with one sort of very much from an online perspective, how we see how people like companies like IBT Online or Symphony Partners sees the world very much online. And anyone who's looking at the online world probably knows these stats, but I just find them so amazing that they're worth remembering at the very beginning of this talk, just to sort of set the scene. So out of the 8 billion of us on the planet, 66%, 2/3 of us are using the internet, and nearly the same number are using social media. And what blows my mind is that we're really spending almost all the time here. Whoa, what do you mean we're not sharing our screen? Okay, hold on, there is a problem. I'm sorry, here we go. Technical issue. Oh, pardon me. Well, we have these issues. Where is the screen? Let's try this. Come on, screen. Come on, internet. Just when we need you. Looking a bit strange. Let's see if this works better. Is that better, folks? I hope so. My apologies for that. Right. Quickly going through introductions, what we do, our agenda, the future of sales. So here are my numbers that I wanted to just blow you away with, but wasn't sharing the screen. 5 billion of us, so 2/3 of the population of the planet, are using the internet, and nearly the same number are using social media. The average time is nearly 7 hours a day. If you are a small mid-cap company, this is very, very good news. It means that you are able to punch above your weight, reach into your prospective clients, your prospective buyers, and really engage with them. You know where they are. They're online and they're on social media. You know how to connect with them. You know where they are. You know how to find them. They're online. And digital tools, as I said, is such an enabler. It allows small mid-cap companies to punch above their weight, to be on the same page as the leaders in their industry. Obviously, the pandemic was a huge, boost to e-commerce. We're now back at the more normal sort of levels of growth, but that was a real step change in a phenomenon that was growing anyway. I wanted to share this slide here with you. Hopefully I'm sharing my screen. So if we look at, the world in terms of B2C e-commerce, Canada is in fact below the worldwide average. The worldwide average is that white bar there. The red arrow shows Canada. And the USA, which we always think is such a huge shopper, was 12% of the global e-commerce world. So e-commerce really is a global phenomenon. It really is. And it obviously makes sense. It's online shopping, and online is global. We looked at that. We saw that. Two-thirds of the world is online. It is a global phenomenon. And therefore, e-commerce lends itself so well to exporting and to going global. Now, when we talk about e-commerce, a lot of us always think about B2C. It is not just B2C. In fact, B2B is about 3 times the size of B2C and growing actually faster than B2C. I've put in this big slide here about global B2B. And then I just wanted to add, even in mature markets, relatively mature markets, Europe, the UK, it's still growing at sort of 10% per annum B2B sales. So don't only think about B2C. This applies just as much, if not more, for B2B. And Shopify has solutions for both. So just in a nutshell, then, when we talk about the future of sales, from our online perspective, we believe very strongly that the future of sales is a digital-first solution. And digital-first always means that you put the searcher, the buyer, your prospective client, at the center of your search, so that you have to use the channels that they want to use. It's an always on experience. So they shop when they want, how they shop, where they want, and you have to adapt to it. So it is customer centric, like everything on the web. It is customer centric. And this means as well that anything you do, like your online tools, like your e-commerce, your website, your online marketing, are all your best sales rep. It's quickly modifiable. It's very, very plastic. It is the thing that helps your brand grow and gives you brand dominance. And it is, as it's an e-commerce enablement, it allows you to have and generate those sales. So just sort of wanted to recap before I give it over to Matthew, some of those latest trends that we're seeing right now. Obviously, we're all talking about AI a lot, and that is definitely a sort of a wave coming. E-commerce is also, from our point of view, no longer something that you can just want to have or like to have. It is really something that is a need to have increasingly. Also, the whole trend towards personalization and the community. Stock photos just don't really do it anymore. You want to have a genuine, authentic experience. And with that comes increased imagery and video, and as a sum to that, social commerce. And then finally, privacy and compliance are increasingly important and vital for today's world. With that, just setting the scene, I'm going to hand over to Matthew to talk us a little bit about the Canadian Consulate General and how they can help you. Matthew.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matt Waldron. I'm the Trade Commissioner here at the Consul General of Canada in Miami. If you've done a few of these before, you've heard this before, so I'm going to get through it quickly. The main part to talk about here on these main slides is that it's not just Miami where we are. It's not just the U.S. where we are. There's over 160 locations around the world in which we can help you get inward. Anywhere there is a consulate, there is a trade office. It may cover different geographies, multiple places in one country, but there's always someone there for you. We're there for market intelligence, connections, introduction, and facilitation. The funding kind of skills that we have in there are mainly focused on SMEs, associations, innovation, community. You've seen the Can Export program has parts of all those, and that's about to wrap up this round of funding. So if you're thinking about that, now's the time to get on it. It is a wonderfully bureaucratic process, so you want to get on there. We're going to skip the CIIP program at this moment. It's not really valid to what we're doing now. But the business support, if you're in this in an area that's utilizing things like AI, you're working on e-commerce, you have a specific hot segment, our Canadian Technology Accelerators help out a lot there. Keep an eye out for one working in your segment. Talk to your regional office in your province about what's going on there. If you don't know where those people are and need to get connected, that's a good time to email me after this. If we're going to go on to the next slide here, we'll kick through. As you can see, it's been around for over 125 years, which is pretty crazy. We work on over 10,000 clients a year. It's all free and confidential. There's over 1,000 trade commissioners. That puts you at about, 100 services per trade commissioner per year on that side, which is a little low for me. So we're hoping that things go on. The interesting way to make sure that you're networked here is make sure that you have your regional office. That'll plug you into what your province is doing to promote and support itself. Even your city may do this on export. Ontario, Montreal, British Columbia, Alberta, Atlantic Canada all have specific programs there, at least that I know of, and I've worked with down here. On top of that, the regional offices for the TCS coordinate everything that we're doing and can help you find out if there is an opportunity for you, say, in Southeast Asia or Central Europe when you haven't been there before. And maybe the person to tell you, no, don't do it, which is sometimes just as valuable as telling you, go, go, go. Next slide. If we have one. We do. Basically, what we're here for is to help you gain those market insight, help you find new market opportunities. As I say, over 10 years of doing this, it's about being a channel breaker and getting you inside and getting you plugged in locally. It takes the scary out of expansion. It's your friend in Miami. As Jimmy Buffett said, everybody's got a cousin in Miami. Well, you have official government employees. So we've got that going on for you. Reduce the risk, help you get into new markets. Why SMEs that export are so much more profitable and, hey, big surprise, pay more taxes than ones that don't. So no surprise, the government is actually very happy when you have export success. It all floats and it takes care of things without having to add new bureaucratic fun to our lives. So I think that is our last slide, isn't it? Nope. Okay. Well, that's a bit on the can export. Different associations and parts like that, you can look up at the web address down there, which is canada.ca/can export to get more of what's going on. It's got the dates of when it's terminating, the actual amounts right now. I think the SME amount is down to 50,000 this round. Things have moved around a little bit. Probably should tweak this slide. Next. Well, that's it on what we're looking at. I'll let you kind of read along there. I won't say anything, but basically, if you're tweaking your product, your service, or your team to get into a new market, whether that's languages, going to trade shows, hiring a marketing company, anything that you're going to do, this covers it. So if you could get half that money back as an SME, wouldn't that be useful? Yes, that was our point here, and that's why we did it. All right. And I'll let you take a look into more of that. Any more questions, follow up with me. On the last bit, those Canadian technology accelerators, as I mentioned, for example, we just did one in property technology out of New York, which was pinnacled with our Spain team and my team down here to look at different aspects of prop tech that we could fit people in with. Everyone in that group who needed connection with VC and investors got it in all three areas. They met people in different segments, different ways of looking at the particular prop tech sector in each area. They got plugged in and pumped up on what's going on and everything else by local folks on that side. So as you can see, coming out of that, they were in a great spot. But even being in the program and knowing what kind of assistance and market acceleration they were getting was also really valuable to the VCs and investors that we pulled in if money is a concern. So a good idea to look at that, as you can see. Okay, I think we get to the nuts and bolts here real soon. The ecosystem, you probably have heard of the Trade Commissioner Service, but it's probably been by a different name. All the money flows out of us at some point anyway, but all that word mark and everything else is how we support all over. So there's probably a way to help you. Any questions, just give me a shout.
Matthew, thank you so much. Let's quickly have a poll. I just wanted to ask, if people are already looking at and connecting with the trade ecosystem, sort of, let's see if there's a quick poll we can run just for that, and figure that out before we ask Colleen to talk about Shopify in particular. Interesting. Great. Great to see. Thank you very much for those responses. And let's move on. Colleen,
Thank you.
back to
Are you able to hear me okay?
yes, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, I'm Colleen. It is so wonderful for you to have me here today. I really appreciate you taking your time out of what I know is a very busy and short week for many. I'm Director of Agency Partnerships over at Shopify. I've been with the company for about 6 years, and I've worked across all the different markets. So initially worked across APAC and EMEA, and I currently work across the Americas and primarily within LATAM over probably the past 2 years. And so I was asked today to come and share a bit of information about some aggregated data and insights that we actually are fortunate enough at Shopify to see. When you think about all the merchants that we have on the platform, we're able to see trends and insights that we can share back into the community. What I think is really important to note is that everything I'm going to talk today is really best practices for your implementation. And what I mean by that is it does not matter which platform you use, from an e-commerce solution, your B2B, your D2C, whatever it looks like. I want to share things that are tangible, that you can action regardless of what your tech stack looks like. I think that's very important to call out. If those who are already using Shopify, I will make references to it in this presentation so that you understand how to leverage the platform itself in certain examples that I'm going to be referring to. So with that, I'm going to touch a little bit on market indicators. We're going to go through some tangible action items and then wrap up with, there's kind of two options how you can utilize Shopify based on how your internal team is set up. So from a market indicator perspective, I want to talk a little bit about where we're looking for 2030. So global e-commerce is a massive opportunity, and we all know it's growing incredibly fast. It's forecasted to surpass over $2 trillion in sales in 2023. So social media has really allowed us to reach new markets a bit more organically, and it's permitting us to build out a very strong international plan and tap into that revenue for your online business. However, when we start thinking about it, despite almost 30% of traffic coming to Shopify stores from visitors outside of the domestic market, we're actually observing that international traffic converts at only half the rate of domestic traffic on average. And so what I'm saying here is that global buyers are browsing, but they are not converting. Really important note. If we click through to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about what we're hearing from merchants who are hesitant to get started. And every time I refer to merchants, I'm really talking about companies, organization, brands who are starting to think about building out their practice. Many people are very reluctant to either expand their offering or to start their offering initially. And what we hear on a day-to-day basis is it is too expensive. I don't know where to start. I don't have a large enough team. These happen over and over and over again. And I was brand side for a number of years. This can be very overwhelming for those who have not gone, or once you do start trying to think about what are some of the next steps that you can take. That's why these sessions and these communities are so important to tap into. I can't emphasize that enough. If you can be fortunate enough to surround yourself with subject matter experts within this space and know how to leverage each of us, it's a really, really important thing to have. And the community in Miami, et cetera, it's something to definitely tap into. And I'm starting to see our community here building out quite impressively as well. I'm going to go and talk a little bit about typical costs. And so on the next slide, you'll see I have two graphs broken out, or two columns. The first column are going to be what I'll call like typical costs to the merchant, to oneself. And then the second column is going to be surprise costs that wind up for the buyer. And these are not ideal costs, that we do not want them to see the surprise costs. And areas where surprise costs are going to come in are things like rejected packages, or there's more fraud on your international shipping, thus you have more chargebacks ultimately that happen, or packages are stuck at customs because information might be missing, or you're going to see a very large increase to your call centers because customers are needing additional documentation, or there's potential fines because you're not complying with international tax obligations. And so all of these surprise costs can really creep up, and then you start seeing these numbers increase quite a bit. And so it's very important as we go in with open eyes and think about how much funding are we actually allocating against this initiative, and how are we implementing this to prevent any of these surprises on the back end and any of these costs as well. So with that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about, I think I've isolated maybe 4 or 5 tips that are very specific. For those who already have a practice, this is probably a refresh on areas that are pretty impactful. And for those who are just starting to build out this practice, these are some really quick wins that can get you up and running very quickly. So the first one we're going to go into is the translation piece of this. So you are very much able to boost your traffic, and you're going to be improving your SEO by localizing your content on your store for different markets. I know it sounds obvious, but when we start looking at it, you're going to see a 13% increase in conversion rate when a storefront is translated into a buyer's local language. For those who are on Shopify, we have an app. It's called Translate and Adapt app. And what it does, it actually lets you auto-translate up to 2 languages for free, and you can manually add as many translations as you wish. So there's a side-by-side editor. It makes it pretty easy to compare and review your translations. And you're also able to adjust your content by market. So if somebody, is speaking the same language, but they might have cultural, seasonal, and regional nuances, you can adjust accordingly. So translations, basic element of this, 13% increase in conversion rate when you're translating to buyer's local language. Very, very important. The second is something I wish I knew when I was brand side for so many years and starting to build out my international practice. And it's this small bit of information that I think is pretty impactful. So when you start thinking about shipping rates, you really have two options. And so you're either able to set your shipping rates based on you want to prioritize your margins or your profits, or you can set your shipping rates based on you're not worrying so much about your bottom line. Growth is the most important thing, and you want to see those numbers starting to come in. So I'm going to talk first about if you really think it's important to prioritize your margin and really think about making some of that profit off of it. If this is important to you, you probably want to pass the entire cost of the label to the buyer using flat rates or dynamically calculated rates. So this is, 25 for ground or whatever it looks like, or put your items into the cart and then you'll start seeing what that price looks like. We generally recommend that you actually do a flat rate approach. And the reason that this is encouraged and emphasized is because it's going to provide the best user experience, because there are not going to be surprises as they continue to add items into the cart. So flat rates are going to boost your cart size and also encourage an increase of your average order value, so the dollar amount that you have within your cart, because there's that peace of mind that you're not restricted. The more you add in, the higher the numbers are going. So if you have items that are like of all different sizes, you can actually set two different rates. So, 5 to 10 pounds, oversized furniture, like any of those sorts of things, it really can depend. So you are able to set multiple rates based on sizing and weight. The latter is if you really want to prioritize for growth, right? So it's not as important about what your bottom line looks. It's really important you're starting to get top of line growth. Then you actually probably want to look at keeping your shipping costs as low as possible to help boost your conversion at checkout. And so what you're really doing there is you're eating your costs of your shipping label. And you can do this by free shipping rates. You could do this through flat rates, etc. So a common practice, in order for you not to feel that you've kind of eaten that dollar amount, is you're able to actually increase your international product prices to counterbalance that out. So it really does give the illusion of free shipping, but you're baking the numbers into the product dollar amount. So that's a good way for you to increase your conversion, but it's also going to be protecting your margin. So in summary here, flat rates are really great if you want to worry about your margin. If you really want to focus on growth, passing off those fees to your end buyer, but thinking about increasing your product price to balance that out. The third we're going to go into, this sounds, again, sometimes some of these are so obvious, and it's important to sometimes go back to the basics with these sorts of things. Your FAQs. So any of the information you have on your information, what we're really trying to emphasize here is we do not want any surprises. And so when you look at your FAQs and you think about what your buyer is looking for, they want to know, what countries are you shipping to? What is happening with your duties and your taxes at checkout? They want to know when their packages is going to be arriving. They want to know if they can purchase in their own currency and if they can use their own payment methods at checkout. Those 4 pieces are just the basics that you have to emphasize and present through your FAQs and wherever else is appropriate through the site. The fourth is about generating traffic. So there's 2 topics here that I wanted to touch on. The first is that it's very important or highly encouraged that you split your campaigns so that you can localize the copy and the imagery. So if you are using dynamic retargeting through Google or Pinterest, you want to be able to localize very specific information, and that is your language, your pricing, and your stock availability. Really important that you don't give the illusion that you have stock available in one market, but you're not able to fulfill within that market. And so Ava's been kind enough, she's going to drop a few links into the chat box here, but there's many options when it comes to how we should actually display this currency and this language on your site. She's going to drop in a few recommendations. So there's multiple Google shopping feeds you can use, data feed, watch, channable, etc. So she'll drop those in as well. All of these options work really well and complement Shopify. In addition, she's also going to drop into the chat box 4 links. I've just tossed in some best practices for advertising on the social media platforms. So Instagram will be in there, TikTok, Pinterest, etc. The second approach here is looking at regional influencers. And so for some, this can feel like a daunting task. You might not know the market very well. You don't have, a PR team. Maybe you're not as comfortable as who's the most influential if you're going to be putting some dollars against regional influencers. We actually have something at Shopify. Again, I want to emphasize you can leverage through Shopify, but this is also a strategy across other platforms as well. At Shopify, we have something that's called Shopify Collabs. It's built right into your admin. It's free with your plan. You're actually able to directly tap into a massive database of influencers, and you can tap into them by looking at their location, which platforms that they operate on, their audience sizes, etc. So you can go through, choose who most aligns with your brand. And then from there, still through Shopify, you're able to send them samples. You can pay them their affiliate commission. You can track their performance and any other financial exchanges you need to do with them. It makes it so easy if you think about that headache of having to handle an influencer community. It is a lot of work. Again, there's many solutions that you could do this, but those are two really great ways. So thinking about your retargeting and splitting out your campaigns is one. And then the second is making sure that you're thinking about regional influencers if it aligns with your brand, or with your company, I should say. And then the final, I'm not going to touch too much on data management and privacy and all the laws and rights. That could be a whole session that we would take dedicated against this. Definitely an area to read up on. I want to talk about two things here. The first is that you may already have, if you have already started to build your practice, you might have an active base of merchants located in that market. And if you do, start with data integrity upfront. And what I mean by that is start to save that segment, give them exclusive discounts, repeat recurring purchases, start to reward them and acknowledge them being first in the market and recognize them for that loyalty. The second is also based on how you're handling customer service. There's so many different options for chatbots, right? Live chat boxes, things like that. And if you are utilizing it, it's really another great way for you to serve up instant answers about your international shipping policies. So we talked earlier about your FAQs. This is another really great place to emphasize, how am I handle duties and taxes? How long is shipping going to be taking? So leveraging any of the customer service automated functionality is another great place to kind of surface how you approach your international expansion plans. And so that kind of leads me to kind of wrap up from a options perspective. And this is why companies like Symphony are so important. Like this is such, these can be overwhelming to think about what your tech stack look like. What should your ecosystem look like? Who are all of your third parties? Because really, when we think about building out our tech stack, you're putting together so many pieces of the puzzle, and you really want them to all complement themselves really nicely with one another. And before you start thinking about tech stack and you start thinking about how all these pieces connect, it's really important as a business to think about what are you realistically able to do yourselves and where do you need to use external people to help you with. And so Shopify, there's two options based on how much capacity you have and how much knowledge you have within your own company right now. The first option, we introduced it back if you can scoot to the next. The first option is I think we launched in February 2022, if I'm not mistaken, and it's something called Shopify Markets. Some of you may be using this already today. And it became one of the fastest growing products on our platform. We have over 175,000 brands who are using Shopify Markets today to sell internationally. When you look at like our top 10 GMV brands, they are all using Shopify Markets. It's wild. And what it does is it gives you control of all of these decisions we're speaking about today, your language, your currency, your payments, your duties, your taxes, all of that, and you can manage it all from a single admin. And what it's permitting you to do is it gives you more authority so you can customize your settings based on your own business needs. And by allowing you to kind of slice and dice and take each element of international expansion and make those decisions for your company, you can see international buyer conversion go up to 40% with the tools that you're localizing with each step of this customer experience. So this is an approach of you're currently using it today. You feel confident in managing this yourselves. It's a phenomenal tool. Again, it's been shipped since 2022 with massive adoption across the company. If you're a little bit more hesitant and you say, I really just need more support than this, I need more guidance on this, then I would probably recommend you look at Markets Pro. So this is the alternative. And what Shopify Markets Pro offers you is something that you'll hear sometimes as terminology within the tech space, is something called merchant of record. And I'm going to talk about that on the next slide. But before I get there, Markets Pro is kind of your guide as you're making some of these, complex decisions on your international expansion plans. And it's going to handle things like your taxes, your duties, your international compliance, and your shipping label. So some of those more complex aspects of international shipping. So merchant of record model. So what a merchant of record model is, it technically means on paper or on record that no transaction has actually occurred with you, even though the buyer made the purchase from your store. So on paper or on record, they actually made the transaction directly with Markets Pro. And so Markets Pro itself is actually handling all of the legal and the financial hassles on behalf of yourself. So they are doing the dirty work for you, if you will. So it's a little bit of a different model based on how your internal team is set up. So again, if you ever hear that term merchant of record, that's really what it's referring to, that on record or on paper, the transaction looks like it's coming through you, but it is being handled by Markets Pro as a piece of technology. And so as you can see here, we've had tremendous impact at Shopify through products such as these. I came to the company 6 years ago. I've stayed at the company for all of these years because the product is phenomenal. I will say that over and over again. I firmly believe in the product. And when you start thinking about all these elements starting to come together, when we look at how Shopify Markets and Shopify Markets Pro are performing, we're able to see a 40% increase in conversion per market with these local currencies. And we're able to see a 13% average boost to your conversions when stores are translated to the local language. So brands are able to multiply their global revenue up to 10 times when you are using a merchant of record solution, which is pretty impressive. And with Markets Pro, you have direct access overnight to 150 markets to sell worldwide. So there are tons of options available to you. And what I don't want to be portraying here is that it is overly complex and overly overwhelming. What my recommendation here is to know the important things and to surround yourself with the right people to get answers on these really important topics and to use the right technology that best suits your business. So there are no right or wrong answers. And so you really want to make the decision that best suits your company. So if I'm not the right person at Shopify to help assist you on this, I can absolutely connect you with the right resources internally. And that's it on my end. I just wanted to share a little bit of learnings that we've seen over a number of years. And I wanted to thank you again for allowing me to join today. I'm going to pass it over to Avalio, who will be sharing about Symphony Partners and their recommendations on really how to leverage this e-commerce ecosystem that we are operating within. So on that, I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you again.
Colleen, before I let you go, I know we said questions at the end. There's just one that's come in that might be just pertinent right now, just really short. If you could just say, for Shopify, how do you guarantee security of the sites that you're hosting? Is that for the merchant to ensure, or is that Shopify's platform that ensures security?
Yeah, what I can do is I can actually send you over all the privacy and compliance information so you can see all the details behind it. It's a number of things. One thing, for example, is like security of our own employees internally and how much they do or do not have access is one point, or where and how we host the platform. So there's a number of inputs for that. So I'll send you over some. I can't see the question, but whoever did ask, I'll send you over some bit of information on that.
Thank you very much. And just also how about a quick poll? We wanted to ask people as well whether they're already involved in Shopify. Are they active? If so, how active? Are they thinking about it? Are they already using Shopify? Please, thank you for some replies. Yeah. Some of you are thinking about it. Some of you are already using it.
Yeah, it's a great platform for sure. So any questions I can help with, but I will definitely pull up all the security information and share that along.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's now turn over to Symphony Partners. Yeah.
Thanks, Susanna. And thanks, Colleen. Yeah, so Shopify, I mean, I'll echo what Colleen was saying. So actually, before I do that, Symphony Partners, we're a boutique agency. So we are involved with a whole slew of technical aspects of running your business, whether it's building a custom website, or if it's a SaaS business, or you want to integrate AI or machine learning into your business. These are all aspects that we definitely have worked on for clients. In particular, for this session, I'll focus on the e-commerce solutions because we do have quite a few clients, especially in the last couple of years, transitioning over to Shopify. And I'll echo what Colleen was saying, is that Shopify is, I think the attraction of Shopify is just because it's such a large ecosystem. And what ends up happening is that if you have a particular problem, chances are there's an application that was built to solve that problem within Shopify. So I think that's what attracts a lot of merchants to the platform. And again, no bias or anything. There are several different platforms out there. We've just noticed that the clients that are coming in are either existing on Shopify or looking to migrate to Shopify for the most part. So what I'll focus on within the e-commerce space today is just very high level. Um, if you've never been on Shopify or you're looking to migrate to Shopify, we'll do this setup and customization, some of the third-party integrations and the success stories behind those, and sort of what you can expect in terms of conversion rates, and then finally what you need to do from a maintenance and support perspective in order to move your business forward when it comes to cross-border. I think from a perspective from the platform selection and setup phase, what's important to note is that Shopify has multiple plans that you can subscribe to. And depending on the size of your business, there will be one that will be particularly geared towards your business size. So if you have multiple employees, or if you have a certain level of revenue that's coming in, specific tiers will appeal to you depending on those. So that's important to note. So there's basic, the Shopify plan, the advanced, and then the plus. So that's important to note. When it comes to customization of your store, most people see Shopify as a plug and play. But in fact, to get started, you could easily select a template and get going. That's as simple as it is. Unfortunately, with cross-border selling, as Colleen's mentioned before, there are different things that you need to take into consideration, and that involves customization of your store. So on Shopify, you can have multiple different storefronts. So you can have one in Germany, you can have one in Canada, and naturally, the way that your website is designed, although it may follow a consistent theme, you may want to adjust your layouts and your features depending on the demographic and the local audience that you're trying to reach. And like I said, you can really go as simple as editing fonts and colors and all that stuff quite quickly. It's once you start getting into incorporating third-party applications, customizing them, that requires a bit more of a back-end technical experience. So not to get yourself overwhelmed, this is where you may want to engage a agency such as ourselves, or there's a whole gambit of us out there. So you do your research and find the one that best suits your needs. And I think when it comes to localization, the important things that we've mentioned here before is that Shopify already offers multiple features that you can leverage on, which is the multi-currency support, multi-language support. These are all very important when you're moving to different markets. And again, you may want to consider a domain that's centric to that region, just to make your potential customers feel more comfortable. A .com versus a .eu or whatever it is may be more suitable depending on what region you're working in. just the next one. So I'll go into the third-party integrations. So you'll see here just some of the big names. These are third-party applications from Klaviyo to ShipStation for logistics, Recharge for subscriptions. There are over 10,000, I would say, applications on third-party applications on Shopify. So as I mentioned before, if you have a specific problem, chances are there's an application that was built to solve that problem. And again, this goes back to the attraction of Shopify. So as much as it may be overwhelming, to enter a new market, just knowing that whatever problem you run into, chances are there's a solution for it within the ecosystem is sort of a weight off your shoulders. And this is sort of some of the applications that we work with, because off the shelf, they work great. And then once you get into different markets, there may be some different customizations that you may want to tweak within those applications just to gear it towards that market and get the most out of them as possible, whether it's data or reach or whatever the case may be. So some of the sort of stats that we've been seeing from some of our clients, obviously we know that merchants want customers to be top of mind, always be thinking about them. So Klaviyo actually is an interesting tool, and this is something that you can look up. But essentially, we've noticed that some of our clients who've enabled the email notifications on Klaviyo, they've seen a 29% increase in revenue. And that's simply things such as if you go onto a merchant's store and you maybe do half the process, you put some stuff in a cart. What Klaviyo is able to do is it's able to reach those customers and just remind them, hey, you have an abandoned cart, or you have a cart that still has items in it. Maybe here's a promotion, 10% if you complete your order now. So this is something that's really worked well for a lot of our clients in bringing back those potential customers who may have not completed the checkout process. With Rebuy, they do a great job of increasing the order value in a customer for customers, and they do this by recommending different products. So off the top of my head, if you're on a customer, if you're on a client site, on a merchant site looking for coffee beans, maybe as you're checking out, there may be some recommendations on the bottom for, they have super modern espresso cups or something, and that will be a recommendation for you, or maybe a promotion or whatever the case may be. These are sort of tools that you can leverage to really be more targeted in your approach and also really increase that order value. So maybe they came in to spend $10, now all of a sudden they're spending $50 when they're checking out. So it's a really great tool for that. Recharge is a very, very useful tool. This is a very popular topic now, is the subscription model. And what we've seen from our clients is that retention is really, really top of mind in this sort of economy. You don't want somebody coming and just purchasing one time and then never coming back. The idea here is to really increase that reoccurring revenue number. And Recharge does a great job of that. And like I said, in the stats here, you can see that retention, we've seen some of our clients of 90% on an annual basis. So that's reoccurring revenue every year. I think one important thing to mention here is that with subscriptions, it gives you the opportunity to really focus on your payback period. When you're going into these new markets, it's important to determine what are your marketing dollars, how much you're going to spend on marketing, how much you're going to spend on development, and then figure out a payback period, because subscriptions are an interesting thing. You're not going to become profitable off your first subscription or your second, but having an idea of what the target is, what the number of subscriptions you need to hit in order to break even or to get that payback period is important, because then that will determine your marketing strategy or any other strategy that you may have, and it'll allow you to focus on those a little bit more and actually have something more targeted. Some other additional points that I wanted to point out here is for subscriptions, we've noticed that businesses who offer subscriptions tend to grow 6 times faster than traditional businesses. And this is a statistic over the last decade or so. So it really pays to investigate further. If you do have a product that you can offer on a subscription basis, it's something we highly recommend to our clients to really evaluate and see if it's an opportunity for them to do. So on the last piece here is the maintenance and support. Once you have set up your store, you've customized it, and you've taken a look at that local market and you've adjusted everything, I think it's really important when you're entering a new market is to constantly be prepared to adapt. And this is where the maintenance and support really comes in. So from a perspective of customer support is really critical. So offering 24 hours support, 24/7 support is something that your clients may really appreciate. Obviously, we keep going back to multilingual support and different languages. This is something that really resonates with different regions. And then performance and optimization. This is an ongoing thing. You're constantly monitoring the metrics on your site, and this will be a telltale sign as to whether your current layout is appropriate, whether the current marketing strategies, discounts that you're offering are working. So our recommendation is always, it's a moving target. So just make sure that you're watching those metrics so that way you can adapt quickly. The faster you adapt, the faster you can make those changes, and then you can really see an impact on your revenue growth. And the final thing is the security and compliance. As Colleen mentioned, this is this could be a whole session on security and compliance, but it's important to read up on data protection for those specific regions. So for example, for cookies, just off the top of my head, I believe it's in June, Google is going to require customers using cookies to use version 2, which is the level up that they have right now if you're operating in Europe. So small little tidbits. It's important to recognize that depending on the region you're working in, that you're operating in, there may be different compliance requirements for those regions. These are just a couple of our customers. We've noticed using the Shopify flow. So Shopify has a really cool feature where you can automate some of your workflow. And with Whitebook in particular, they actually noticed 65% reduction in their manual errors. So there was a reduction in human error by 65%. And then with Klaviyo, Attention Grace really benefited from Klaviyo. Just again, these automated email open rates, these are all statistics that are very important to our merchants because it dictates to them whether their current strategies need to be adapted or if they're working correctly. And again, marketing and analytics, depending on the region you're in, SEO optimization and content marketing, paid advertising, these are all very centric to the regions that you're operating in. One example that comes to mind is that, for example, in Europe, email marketing, for example, is not as well received as it may be in North America. So you have to rejig your strategies depending on the market that you're in. In Europe, again, Instagram is a big thing, and maybe spending most of your paid dollars, ad dollars on Instagram will, convert better than, for example, spending it on email marketing where no one's going to open up your email. So these are all very important things to consider. Again, I'll revert back to, using specific keywords in your SEOs that are specific to those regions. So this requires a significant amount of research beforehand, just to make sure that you're optimizing your strategies. So the last slide here is you're ready to go and you're ready to move into a different region. I guess, what are some of the things you should consider? For us, what we've noticed is clients are always looking at the TAM, and they're always trying to consider what piece of the pie essentially they can capture. So what is the size of your addressable market in that specific region? And realistically, what portion of that do you think you can successfully capture? So with that being said, that requires doing your research, doing your number crunching, and making sure that before you enter that market, that there is room for you in that region, and that will help you build strategies around how to actually achieve that market share that you're really trying to get after. So that's from our end. If there's anything else that I can answer on this call, we've dealt with a variety of customers from different regions. So we've seen pretty much it all. We've integrated and migrated different applications. So this is sort of our bread and butter as of recent, since there's been such a boom in the Shopify space. And yeah, happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you so much, Valio. Let's just ask as well if anyone in the audience would like to. There's a poll just to ask if anyone would like to have Valio and Symphony partners reach out to them. Please let us know. I think there's a poll. Hold on. We have some big technical issue here. And here we go. Yes, at last. There we go. So if anyone would like to learn more about Symphony Partners, please let us know. We'll be happy to send you some links, or Valio can reach out to you in due course and show you some resources perhaps and things. And again, thank you very, very much about that. We appreciate your participation in that. I'm going to whiz through some of my things because we have a very short time now. So, Matthew, did
Sorry
you
about
have
that.
Well, mine was only just a quick question for the two, but if you want to finish, what you're saying there, it might actually load in, because what I was going to ask is, between things like native language, localized data usage, and making sure you've connected your channel correctly to the right person, which one of those things is the most important, or do you need to check all those boxes before you're ready, or can you do one at a time and grind it off? That's for both Colleen and Avalia.
You're saying of all the recommendations we're providing, what is the most important? Do we translate?
Well,
do we do our feeds?
Right. I not so much rank the numbers but am I ready to go if everything isn't in place? Should I start before I get it all together, or should I make sure all my ducks are in a row before we head to the pond?
Understood. I think there's and he's much closer to probably the advisory side directly with the end user. But for me, I think what's quite important, after his recommendation of market sizing, is there opportunity for you in this market? Does it financially make sense, et cetera? Mm-hmm. I think there's a whole component of the logistics side. Am I able to sell in this market? Sometimes your product could be a limitation. Am I able to get the inventory into this market? So there's that whole component to it. Then I would say probably it comes down to staffing, right? Like, how do I handle customer service? Am I able to support? What do I deal with? Language translations? Like, all of these are quite big business decisions, I would say, before we start thinking about maybe the tactical components of first do your translation, then your marketing feeds, et cetera. So I think it's probably that business decision making in the middle of it that I would say is pretty important. And for me, it's the logistics side that would probably be like, if you can confirm you can do all of that, then tactically you could start figuring out the best way to optimize your setup. I don't know if you'd recommend something similar or if that completely conflicts, but that would be my advice.
No, you're absolutely right. So I'll revert back to this again, is that Shopify is great because the ecosystem is absolutely huge. So, Colleen makes a good point. This goes without saying. Can you even import your product into that region? That goes without saying. So if we put those things aside and you're worried about, translation or any of those things, Even just off the top of my head, there's like Langify. I think I mentioned it in one of the slides, but there's a whole slew of apps that help you with those small nuances of those regions. So you can rest assured that there will be some kind of solution available for that. But yeah, generally speaking, to answer, Matt, your question, from an advisory standpoint, this is more of an opinion than anything else, but we tend to encourage our customers to go into those regions that they are thinking about. Is just get started, get going, because you need to make a step forward. And sometimes it goes without saying that there's going to be challenges, but we work through it with our clients and we make sure that they're set up as best as we can. There's no doubt there's going to be unexpected challenges along the way.
Nothing breeds focus like momentum then. I got it. So
Yeah,
get
exactly.
going and get adding on. Thank you very much.
Right. We have passed the hour. We're going to extend the webinar for about 10 minutes, and hopefully I'll just whiz through mine, and then that gives us 5 minutes. So thank you all so much for hanging on there for the rest as we plow on, and for the lively discussion I'm starting to see in some of the Q&A. From our point of view, from IBT Online's point of view, as I said, we're a full stack online marketing company where what are those must-haves, sort of slightly addressing, Matthew, your question, what are some of those must-haves that we see are essential for e-commerce success? We've talked about, ready to export. We've talked about, identifying the problem that your product or service solves. I want to talk a little bit about a buyer persona and that buyer's journey. The channel that we're talking about today is Shopify, but there are others. But Shopify is an amazing one. I think what was the growth last year? 27%, huge. The point that we have as well, I think partly an answer to your question, Matthew, is for our point of view, when we look at clients doing this, yes, we can just launch and go for it. But for us, you have to have seamless, absolutely faultless execution. Otherwise, you're going to burn your brand, and you don't want to do that. So yes, it's fine, just launch, but don't launch when you're really not ready. Launch when you at least know that you have the basics. You can deliver what you say you deliver on time to your client. Otherwise, you will burn your brand. And then the key to any store is marketing. You can't, the world is too competitive right now. You have to have online marketing. And that has to be part of your business plan from the very start. And then as Colleen mentioned as well, that data collection, that data analysis, what we like to say is sort of rinse, lather, repeat, do it again. So just whizzing through some of those things, I thought I'd focus in on buyer persona for one. What is a buyer persona? It is the person, not the company, but the person who may buy from you, the person you're trying to engage with, that they'll fill out the contact form, that they'll add it to the cart, that they'll actually put their card details in there. It takes a lot of confidence and trust to put card details into a cart. So you need to examine exactly who that buyer persona is, maybe shift a little bit. So I'm giving you some questions you can ask yourself on the left-hand side. The picture you see is L'Oreal USA. L'Oreal hair company, they make shampoo. Everyone's got great hair. What interests me here, and L'Oreal spent a lot of time really detailing that buyer persona. So here, it's a diverse set of women on the top floor. Everyone's got an iPad or something in their hand. It's quite interesting as a thought. L'Oreal Mexico is a little bit different. It's subtly different. They're on the top floor. It's still a working environment. There are two men there. It's more collegiate. It's actually less diverse, more collegiate. It's interesting. L'Oreal Canada is different again, mosaic, which I find interesting from L'Oreal to have done. So L'Oreal is reflecting what it believes its buyer persona wants to see in those imagery. And that is just purely image. The message is the same in each case. But L'Oreal is cognizant of the need for that buyer persona to recognize themselves immediately. And you have less than 4 seconds, by the way, way less than 4. Google thinks it's 2 seconds, but who knows? A silly example also about a buyer persona, and this is Canada versus Mexico, Facebook. This is pre-G4. This is a little while ago. But it's still so shocking to me that I keep it as an example. Same period of time, same product, same, okay, one's in Spanish, one's in English, but So Canada, 1,000 engagements, that we were actually very pleased with that. Canada's kind of a frosty market. So we were pleased with 1,000. Same time, 20,000 in Mexico. We have people sending in baby pictures, shares, likes, ha-has, all kinds of things going on here. So I was like, whoa, that is a very, very different buyer journey on that social media, isn't it? And but that's the sort of vanity. That's vanity. That's like liking stuff, sharing stuff. But what about engagement? What about conversion? What about, yes, I'll buy that. Where can I buy it? Where can I? And there, it's harder to see on this, but the green and yellow bars are the conversion, and they're pretty well the same. So I know that I need 20 times the engagement in Mexico than I do in Canada to get the same conversion. So that is a buyer's journey. The buyer's journey is different in Mexico. The buyer's persona is different in Mexico. So when you're looking at international markets, one of the first things you need to do is figure out your buyer persona, what they resonate with, how they trust, and that buyer's journey and how that works through them. So that's a silly example of it. Obviously, we talked about language quite a bit and keywords and how that makes it important, especially when you're doing on marketing. And again, here's a silly example of sneakers and runners. And here in Canada, we all talk about runners and not sneakers. So if you're in the athletic business, it would be a shame if you're going into the USA to talk about runners, because they don't talk about runners, they talk about sneakers. So you'd have very different Google ad campaigns on your Shopify. And you would be spending a lot of money on Google for nothing if you put in runners. You would just be handing Google your wallet. Not a good idea. So e-commerce, some of those checklists that you need to have on your e-commerce site, on your Shopify site, if you're going international, one of them is obviously the pricing, the tax, those discounts, how they reflect in the local market. The payment methods are incredibly important. Not all markets have the level of credit cards that Canadians and Americans do. Not all, most companies, a lot of places want to have installments. They want to have some weird places, some places have really, pretty exotic payment installations and delivery. India is an amazing market, but it's all about little tuk-tuks at the end. I mean, the last mile is really complex, not about credit cards. So make sure the payment. Shipping and order fulfillment, we've talked about quite a bit, and I totally agree with Colleen. It is one of the big, big challenges for any merchant, how to get the shipping and fulfillment right. And that's why Market Pro is so amazing. Compliance and third-party integrations. We've talked a lot about the apps. Shopify indeed has over 12,000 apps at the moment, and that is one of its real strengths for that. Love the apps. We talked also then, the need for online marketing. And again, one of my big charts, the white arrow here, the white line, bar, is worldwide average use of social media for brand research. So if you say, brand research, well, really Instagram, really TikTok? Yes. Especially if you're going international, because Canada, it's 60% of people online go online and look at into social media for brand research in Canada. If you're going to the USA, it's like 70%. Canada's way down there. So if you're going to look international, you have to really think and figure out what kind of platform you want to be on, how you want to integrate, how you want to involve with that. Just two examples I wanted to share. This is a shop. We talked about B2C and B2B. This is a B2B company. B2B Shopify works really well when you don't have a product that needs a lot of specification. When you have a product that has to go through a quote and a specification problem, then you probably need a different platform, to be honest. You probably need something called a build a cart, request a quote platform, which is probably going to be on WooCommerce. But for a product that is like, here's the product, there's no specification, there's no fine tuning at the end, Shopify is an enormous, enormous enabler for B2B companies. It's kind of hard to see, but the one on the right is Mexico. So the best top level country domain name for Mexico is in fact .com.mx. They like the .com as well, so .com.mx for Mexico, not just .mx. It's all in pesos, and it's all in metric. Okay, not imperial if you're going to the U.S. So imperial for the U.S., metric for Canada, metric for all those things really count. Again, talking about building the trust you need for that buyer's journey. Another little example I wanted to give, again on Shopify. This is actually a U.S. company, but they do a lot in Canada. They make stuff for tennis, courts, rackets, everything else for tennis. And the official court surface for the Rogers they if you look at what they produce on their shop, they have a lot of categorization, a lot of influencers, and a lot of the cross-selling in it. So a pretty sophisticated level of Shopify in their US market. Their biggest export markets, they figured, are going to be in Europe. How to do that with their US, Canadian website, in this case US website. How to get the best shop out there, because their products are different in the US, in Europe. And so basically they went ahead and said, well, let's invest. So they now have a different Shopify site for the UK, a different one for France, a different one for Germany. So they're managing 4 Shopify sites, because that way they can really focus and tailor it for each market, both with the product, the imagery, and the online marketing that goes with it. And here you have examples of the UK, Germany, and France for each one of those. So each one has a very discrete universe, which they can really focus on and drive their sales. That's expensive. It's heavy. There's a lot of stack that goes into it. A lot of time for us to manage all that. But it is really, really paying off, not just in terms of overall sales, but global brand development, to have those different stores, different markets. And the return on investment actually was within 1 year. So that's a really, really strong return on investment for them, because they were able to leverage their Shopify expertise and our Shopify expertise to get that through. So I'm racing through. Takeaways, next steps are from us point of view. I think from all of us, Matthew, Colleen, Valio, and from us at IBT Online, very much make sure your online assets are working hard for you. The world is online. Make sure that you are able to give your clients, your prospective clients, the kind of online experience that they want, which is probably going to be e-commerce. And Shopify is a platform that is made for you. Some of those latest trends reflected in today's webinar. Yes, AI, but e-commerce as well. E-commerce definitely is foremost for that, and we're seeing it in the continuous growth. And just look at Shopify's growth. Quarter on quarter. I think the first quarter you're up 8%. Just quarter on quarter, 8%. Year on year, I think you're nearly 30% up. Very strong. Those must-haves, again, I think we've all reflected them. Colleen reflected them, Matthew on his side, and we're all sort of saying, okay, there's a well-trodden path for that. And I think one of the keys that we're saying for the international market is respect your local buyer, respect the localization that goes into it, and make sure that you're relevant to that local buyer and that buyer's journey that you can go through. So the good news is that you don't have to do this alone. Exporting can be tough. E-commerce can be tough. It's daunting. You don't have to do this alone. You can call Matthew. He can say, yes, here, go to Ontario or wherever it is. There's a lot of help there. You can call Valio and Symphony, and I've put their websites there as well. You can call them up and say, all right, give me a price. What do you do? Here's my stuff. How can I help? Whatever. You you can call us. We have a ton of research as well on our website that you can download for free, for assets on e-commerce, on languages, on online marketing, and so on. And yeah, you could reach out to Shopify directly. I haven't left Colleen's email address on it, but perhaps if she's willing to
Drop it right in the chat. Yep.
Thank you very much. I didn't want to presume, but we've kind of stretched things in terms of timing. It is quarter past for that, and for that. So thank you very much for that. I wanted to say a big thank you to everybody for joining us and for staying on so long. Thank you all very much. We'll get back to you directly for individual questions. We've got a ton of resources there in the chat box that Colleen has added for your Shopify forms, for all the data privacy, for all those blogs and so on. Big thank you to Evalio and to Symphony Partners, who are specialists in the tech side of things, and to Matthew as always for pulling this together, for thinking of the subject, and for being there for Canadian exporters. Thank you all very, very much. Happy exporting, happy Shopifying, and see you all in due course, online or offline. Drop in to an office near you soon. Thank you all very, very much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye, everyone.